This is the Sourced Podcast, where cold mornings, screaming bull elk, and bent rods turn into legends told. Hosted by Nate Zielinski and brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing, we go beyond tags and trophies, into the grind, the heartbreak, and the moments that keep us coming back for more. If it bugles, if it bites, if it lives wild, it's Sourced. Lock in.
Welcome to the Source Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski. I tell you what, the Source Podcast is proudly brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing. Again, we keep talking about it, home of the Model 60 ice drill. Super excited for that lineup in this upcoming winter using that drill. But I'll tell you what, today's show is unbelievable simply for the fact that the topic we're talking about today is probably one of the biggest things that I don't want to say I fake it, but something that I probably truly know the least about on detail. It's probably one of the most important things in the entire category of fishing. We are going to talk about fishing line. We've got literally the man, the myth, the legend, the person who knows more about it than anybody I know, Chris Pitsilos of Berkley Fishing Line. Man, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, you are very welcome, Nate. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope to be as insightful as some of your other guests, and let's try to bring some of that insight about fishing line. Something that you brought up it's very important, and it gets forgotten about, but it's super important.
That's it. It really does. And I mean, I have all the questions for it, but I mean, let's just do a formal more introduction. What is your role at Berkley? Walk us through what you do on the day-to-day with Berkley, and then we'll start digging into it.
Yeah, my day-to-day is brand manager on the fishing line category, so I handle Berkley, Spiderwire, and Stren.
Perfect. Awesome. So, I mean, literally, when you talk about big brands, those are them right there. I mean, you talk about in the category of line, in retrospect, I mean, those are the big ones right there. So it's awesome with that. So we talked about it briefly, right? There's a lot of categories of anglers, right? You have very advanced anglers that are very into their line. You have anglers that are new to angling, and I mean, they hardly know it's line, right? They call it string half the time, right? And then we have that middle ground, and really the middle ground is the one I want to talk to the most. That middle ground angler, they understand that there's categories: mono, super line, and fluorocarbon. And they get that. And they're like, okay, this is cool. I know I need this, this, and this. But do they even know what the differences are? Do they know when you use those? But more importantly, each of those categories has subcategories, and it's like, that's where you totally lose them, right? You talk about mono and having a stiff line, a soft line, a smooth line. You talk about your super lines, right? Is it a fusion? Is it a braid? Your fluoros, the list goes on. So that's what I mean, I have a million questions, but I almost would rather you just start breaking it down. Mono, super line, fluoro. Give us some ideas of what those are and some categories within it.
Sure. So the three categories would be nylon monofilament. Then you have fluorocarbon monofilament. Technically, those are both monofilaments. Okay. One of them they're different materials. So nylon is different than PVDF. PVDF would be short for polyvinylidene fluoride, which is fluorocarbon. Okay. Everything we do, it's inside these walls is when we make a fluorocarbon, it will be 100% fluorocarbon. And then you have braid. You have gel spun polyethylene. And we have proprietary technology that we call it fuse technology, and that's where we've coined the term superline. So it's a superline versus just a conventional braid. So three very different line classes, and they do different things. Everybody kind of either started on a Dacron polyester quote unquote braid material back in the day, or they got into nylon monofilament. The nice thing about nylon monofilament is it's easy to use. It has stretch, it has forgiveness to it. You know, you imagine an angler that goes from monofilament to superline. And, you know, the reason there's a love-hate relationship there is because they didn't totally get it. They didn't totally put the right line on the right rod and reel setup. There was some issues with some of those PE lines that came out originally affecting their current setups. And people loved it or hated it, right? They understood the fact that there was no stretch, but then on the other hand, if they had problems with it, they hated it. So I have a tendency to use it all. I use it all.
So I'm 100% with you. I use it all. It all has a technique.
It all has a purpose. When I'm crappie fishing or I'm bobber fishing, I don't like to have a knot. I don't like to have a leader knot in there. It's just easier, especially if I'm long casting. Our lakes have a tendency to be on the clearer side. and it's just easier to not have to deal with the knot. So I'm using straight monofilament. I actually use Trilene Sensation. I'll use Trilene XL, XT in some cases, but it all depends on what I'm doing. So let me go back and let's just talk about the categories a little bit. So you have mono, you have fluoro, and then you have braid. Those are the three generic terms of all three. Monofilament, again, it's going to be nylon. There's going to be multiple, some call it copolymer. There's always typically more than one, which ultimately goes into a multi-polymer formula.
Okay.
Everything we make, 99.9% of our lines are made here in Spirit Lake. In Spirit Lake, Iowa. I don't know if anybody knows that. There's some insight for you. There's a who's your daddy moment right there, Nate. Okay. So we make all of our lines here. We process all of our lines. We formulate all of our lines here. So we own the formula trade secret. We own the processing trade secret. And we're able to, if an angler wants more castability or if an angler wants more manageability, we can pull that lever.
Okay.
How
much line is made there? Do you have that number?
What's that?
How much line is made like in a year? Do you know that? Or a week?
Oh yeah, you know what? It's one of those. It's one of those things that goes around the Earth a bazillion.
That's
times.
what I was just wondering.
Back and forth to the moon.
I can't even imagine.
That's funny. I don't have the exact number in my head, but
this. I've tracked my line usage for 3 years, and all 3 years I am give or take within about 500 yards of 17,000 yards a year. So I go through 17,000 yards of line a season for all I do. So I run about 70 rods, being an all species guide, all species tournament angler, and content. So I run 70 rods, and in total I go literally almost spot on to 17,000 yards a year is what I'm running as my profession.
17 was do the math. 17,000 divided by about 150 yards per thing. So you got about 113 spools of line. I appreciate that. Right.
That's it. So either way, you're producing a lot of line. So continue on.
Yeah, so no, that's great, and that's
made
funny you say that. Some people like to leave their lines on longer, and you get pros that'll switch fluorocarbon, every other day, every tournament, whatever it may be. So it's all perception and historical use. We always battle perception. Perception is reality. For me to try to educate an angler on something where he really, really loves 10-pound Trilene XT or whatever, it's going to take a lot more effort. So we always like to say, give the anglers what they're asking for, give the anglers what they want. And of course, we always are educating. That's one thing that'll never stop with us is education. But anyway, I digress. Let me go back. So monofilament is made with nylon. It's going to stretch as I apply a force to it. It will stretch, unlike fluorocarbon, where there's a certain amount of force applied, and then it will start to stretch. That's why they say fluorocarbon is more sensitive than nylon monofilament. So it makes sense. Yep. You're going to have obviously different diameters, different colors in there. Mono will take in a little bit of water, and it reduces its strength just a little bit. You can have some UV issues with mono that you don't in fluorocarbon. I always tell anglers the same two things about everything. Put your line in a nice, cool, dry spot. Yeah. Don't be obnoxious about it and put it on the deck of your boat or the dashboard of your car in 100 degrees and think everything's going to be fine. Probably won't be fine. Yep. Let's not abuse it. And then I always tell them, just lick everything. When it comes to knots, I lick everything, whether it's braid, whether it's fluorocarbon for sure, monofilament for sure. But I just lick it all. So I get in the habit of trying to do the right thing, and thus it prevents me. I'm not on the water. You would think that I'm on the water all the time. And I'm not. Our goal is to understand what the fish want, what the angler wants, and then be good listeners, be good communicators, and then put that into a product. But when I'm fishing, I'm usually it's a couple hours here, it's a couple hours there, maybe a field evaluation or something. And it's important that we're being efficient with our time. So I try to maximize. That's why anglers have 1,000 rods, right? Because I don't want to have to retie. This is my panfish rod for this. So this is my walleye rod for that. So let's go out and fish and not waste time. But anyway, so that's kind of the deal with monofilament. Monofilament will take a set. As you know, it floats to slightly, I want to say suspends, but under the water. If it takes in a little water, and it starts out as floating, right? It's basically going to float, is what we say, just like braid. And also, unlike fluorocarbon, that's why anglers love fluorocarbon. Monofilament. Let me see. Did I miss anything? Yes, it takes a set. So there's a memory to it.
Yep.
It will, when it's on your reel and you've set it out for a week and it's sitting over in the corner of your garage, it will take a set. The nice thing is it will relax. A lot of anglers will run it back into the water and just help it relax a little bit. They'll do some casting with it. That helps it relax. You can run it through your fingers. That helps it relax. There's a little bit of warmth in your fingers where you can just add a little bit of that helps a lot. And it works pretty well. It does everything that an angler's going to need it to do. Trilene XT used to be huge back in the day, pitching and flipping, still is huge,
yep.
Right? Still good enough to do the job. And then now you're seeing the advent of some of these other lines come into play that, like a forward braid in terms of castability, right? So a forward braid would be on the braid side, it would be the Maserati of braids, and it's a very unique construction. It's a very unique coating. And so it's going to apply in these particular situations. It's not like you're taking, you're going to run it out in Minnesota in the middle of December, right? It's made specifically for a given application. And that's kind of where lines have gone to now, right?
I love that. And before we get too carried away, on the mono side, I want to give all of our views, like our perspective of that individual use. So like my world, right, as a content tournament guide, everything that I do as a Western angler, mono is still a major part of my life, right? And I mean, I can tell you right now that XT is where I born and braised, and everything about my life has been XT. If anybody's ever followed my career or anything, right, I've made more money and done more things in my career on XT than anything else out there. So all of my trolling is XT, right? We wrote the trolling Bible on XT, where I attach my planer boards. That extra tough quality, it does great on your release of your planer boards. And where mono, I don't want to say fails, 'cause that's a really bad word, but where anglers don't like mono is where I like mono. They're like, oh, it stretches too much. I'm like, I love the stretch. So I use mono in trolling scenarios when I have a lot of line out. When that fish does a big head throw, I want that to stretch. I want it to absorb those crazy shakes and not pull the hook or break anything. So like, I love it for that. So I troll with XT. It's a major part of what I do in my life. All my slip bobbers are monofilament. Whether I'm using an XL or an XT, same type thing as you, right? I don't want my bobber stops don't act right on any of your braids or super lines. I want a nice solid that, and same thing on a hook set, right? It's a sloppy project fishing slip bobbers. That mono just kind of springs up, tightens up, and it almost pulls back and does a hook set for you. So the stretch factor is a part of being more successful on a slip bobber rig. So mono's huge. That ice fishing, big rainbows, right? We ice fish these big trout, and I don't care how quality of a rod you're using. When we're running a 30, 38-inch rod, whatever, right, 30 to 40-inch rod, it's only so much rod. And when you have an 8, 10-pound rainbow fighting, everything goes wrong. If you don't run mono, it's crazy. All my friends are running high-end lines, and I mean, they lose half the fish they hook, and I land them all, and they're like, what are you doing different? I'm like, man, run mono. They're like, why would you run mono? It's like they're too good for it. And I'm like, man, the mono saves the day. Like, that stretchiness, it'll save you. So as much, I mean, I have a topwater bite that I fish giant lake trout with topwater, and if I run braid, I overset the hook. I set the hook too fast. It's not even about the floating quality. I want the delay. So again, I think I get sensitive about it because everybody nowadays in our world, again, they kind of downgrade the mono thing. And I tell you what, there is a lot of times where that mono will absolutely shine. And I see advanced anglers with certain techniques, and I'm like, man, if you'd run back to mono, you would have landed that fish. So either way, as we talk about that, as we do each category, I'd love to kind of hit some finer points of when we use it and why we use it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, you hammered it on the head. The best way I could say too for anglers is just get out there and fish it and compare it to. You brought up the good point with slip bobbers. It can be a problem. I think one area where you have mono where it really works is you're going to have a 4 or 5 foot piece of 15 pound if you're topwater fishing. You know what happens when you're fishing a braid, right? That topwater bait will come around and swing and put a treble hook right in between and herniate your braid. Yep. And now you have this herniation and that's a problem, right? It's going to take in a little bit more water. You may create a strength issue. Typically, that doesn't always happen. But the nice thing about mono, that part of mono is just it keeps it away. And of course, mono floats. So you don't really want to fish fluoro. They typically won't fish fluoro for top waters, depending on what they're doing. But that's typically a no-no as a popper and a walker, because action is important. That's kind of my background a little bit here. We worked on the action side of crankbaits and have done some stuff, and all those little nuances are super important. The best thing I could tell anglers is just go out and try it, and then just keep running it. Like, okay, here's a straight mono, here's a straight braid. Let's see the comparison. A lot of anglers believe that I need a leader with braid. I'm sure that's not always the case. I tie everything with a leader with braid for the most part, unless I'm pitching and flipping in heavy cover where it doesn't much well matter. But in my clearer waters, I'm typically using a leader. And in my mind, because of my history and what I perceive, it matters, and I want to be able to catch more fish.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what Berkley does, right? We create products, we create fishing lines, ultimately to help the angler to catch more fish. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. So, okay, before we leave mono, walk me through the specifics, like XT, XL, Sensation. Just walk me through what those are. And again, we're not saying you have to buy Berkley, whatever lines you're using, but just being knowledgeable that there's different variations of it. Obviously, very biased. This is obviously the best line out there, so just disclosure that to everybody. But, no, walk them through, because again, you say mono, and everybody thinks all mono is created equal, and it's not. You look at XL and XT, and it is like night and day. So walk everybody through just what's in the mono category real quick.
Yeah, in the mono category, we're going to have on the base deck, we'll have big game. Big game's going to really emphasize strength and shock. So we don't de-spec anything. We don't say, well, let's just take this out and let's make something that's super unmanageable, but we're going to give the angler this. No, typically we're going to provide them everything that they're going to need: strength and abrasion resistance, shock. The goal is to catch fish, right? It's kind of like looking at some of those lines that are on combos, right? The line comes off pretty gnarly, and that's not a really good experience for a lot of people. Especially kids, right? A lot of combos go to beginners, maybe go to children, and that's not the best foot forward for the industry or for a brand. So Big Game's been there. Big Game's been out there since '86. Fantastic for all species of fish, but it's going to be a little bit bigger diameter. It's going to overemphasize on strength and diameter, and it's just going to give you're going to be able to catch fish, no problem. It's got great value on the spool with Big Game monofilament. I think it all the way from, like 1,500 yards down to whatever, depending on pound test. Yeah. So great value, great product. And then as you move up, you get into the XLs and the XTs. So now here you go. So again, we know that strength is important for anybody choosing a mono, choosing a fluoro, choosing a braid. Strength and toughness are like key number one. Got to have it. Let's not come to the table if you don't have strength. But now it's like, okay, how do I pull the lever on manageability? And so we know that Trilene XL is very manageable. Of course, it's a mono. It'll take a set, but it undoes that set really quickly as you're fishing. And so all that stuff is formula related, trade secreted with our process. And that is one thing that is very important to all anglers. The manageability is super important, especially when you get into fluorocarbon, right? Fluorocarbon can be quite unmanageable. And how do you make a better experience in that category? So you have Trilene XL. XL actually stands for extra limp, smooth casting. So if I can make something manageable, but yet still be strong, yet still be abrasion resistant. Where I've had, when you play around, you ask people that question. We've had a lot of guides, like you ask them, like, what do you fish? What are you always fishing? They'll say XL every day, because every day in and out, it's going to perform for you. And especially when you're dealing with a whole different angler set. From one day to the next, you could have an avid the one day, and then you could have a beginner the next, and just XL performs. XT is going to be a little bit bigger diameter than XL. XT is meant to be extra tough. That's what it stands for, XT, extra tough. And again, that bigger diameter is going to give you more strength because it's more material. It's going to give you tougher. And it's going to give you higher in shock. And as you well mentioned, great for still pitching and flipping, great for trolling when you need it. What do they troll in the Mark Romanak books, right? So it's what, 10-pound XT,
That's it,
right?
10-pound XT.
10-pound XT. You don't want something too stretchy, and you want something with some give. It's kind of like the middle bear, right? The middle bear, not the baby bear, not the mother, not the parent bear.
That's it.
The middle bear. I'm a middle child, so I'm always going to focus on the middle.
Yep.
Okay. My wife gets mad at me the fact that I like everything in the middle, and so it's like, no, that's just right.
It is.
It's kind of like when we're frog fishing, right? 50-pound braid is the number one size for frog fishing. Yeah. You could frog fish with 40. Fine, go ahead. It's fine. 65 is fine too. But if I want to maximize strength and castability and everything and have an optimal line, it falls with 50.
Yep.
So there's XL, XT. Then we get to Trilene Sensation. So within the mono category, one area that we would love to improve, that we try to improve upon, is sensitivity.
Yep.
Since mono stretches, how do you improve that? So it is a nylon copolymer. It has improved stretch, which also has improved sensitivity. And we get a lot of walleye guys love that line. So it's manageable and auto spinning, but also very sensitive. Okay. So that is our freshwater. That's our freshwater mono, and then we have saltwater in Prospect Chrome across the board.
Yep. And
Prospect Chrome is geared to be tough, because of you're dealing with a harsher condition. You could probably say that about our Prospect Chrome Fluoro, our Prospect Chrome Braid. That's saltwater just seems to be a much harsher environment, especially with the toothy critters you're catching, bigger, stronger, faster, tougher. So what we'll do is we will compete directly against a competitor and beat them in abrasion resistance. Won't mention who that is, but it is a tough monofilament, perfect for those conditions. When they're trolling and they need a tougher line, and they like to use monofilament. Not everybody does. A lot of them will use a hollow braid or straight braid or whatever. It depends on what you're doing.
Yep.
But that is our monofilament side of the business.
I love it. And that answers a lot of questions, what people could be looking for. Again, look at your scenario, what your style of fishing is. But again, moral of the story, I definitely wouldn't overlook mono. In today's era, everybody goes straight to the braid and the fluoro. I think mono, it has its place and it will always have its place. So keep that in mind. And once you go to that category, think about your specific techniques and which category to fall under. But again, I love giving love to the mono because I think it's an important part of the category.
Yeah, especially when you talk light, if you're fishing light stuff. I do a lot of panfish, crappie, that type of stuff, yellow bass, whatnot, and it's like, man, you don't want to have something that's too terribly limp. You don't want to have something that's going to be stiff and a problem. And so mono just seems to work very well in that situation. Not perfect. There is no perfect line. Yeah. And again, our perception, our historical use really plays a part in what line we're using. Again, if I took a guy that fished mono all the time and gave him braid, he probably would, he probably would struggle a little. He would either struggle and want his mono back, or he'd be like, wow, I didn't know this existed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which does happen. It does happen. So I've been on some trips. So
very eye-opening. Perfect. All right, as we go into the braid superline category, this is a whole thing, and I think for start off, walk people through the fusion concept and the true braid concept. And this is funny because I've been such a diehard Fireline guy my whole life. All my seminars, I bring up Superline. Everybody's like, "What do you mean Superline?" I'm like, "It's the category super." They're like, "It's called braid." I'm like, "No." In my world, it's called Superline, but it's just because I've been such a passionate, angler with that from the beginning. But either way, let's jump into that category because this is a big one.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So for Superline, again, Superline is made with gel spun polyethylene. It's a very strong fiber. Those fibers are bundled together into different. We call them carriers, and those carriers are then braided, like you would braid your wife's hair, your daughter's hair, girlfriend, whatever it is, right? You're braiding it the same type of way. Yep. And then you're coloring it and coating it, and you're holding it together to ultimately make a fishing line. Again, a lot of our lines, almost all of our lines are right here made. We process them all here, make them all here. So it's great to have that intellectual property inside the building. So, when you look at braid, it's not gonna have stretch. It's gonna be 10-pound braid, will be like 4-pound diameter monofilament. Because of how strong it is, it has to be rated differently. You get into it doesn't take in water. The fiber doesn't take in water. Now you will get water in between in between the fibers if you open it up and cause a problem. So if you have a very limp braid and you have very little coating on it, it becomes like a waterlogged wet noodle, and that wet noodle wants to stick to your rod blank, it wants to stick to your guides and be a problem. Now, some anglers they like it limp and they deal with that issue. Some people don't like it limp. Okay, and hence they stay away from it. But again, it all depends on what you prefer and what you can deal with. Okay, so we talked about its diameter is very small, its strength is very strong for sure. It has no stretch. It's not going to take any water. Everything we do, we'll color it and coat it, and then we're able to provide the strength and durability based off of what our processing is. So if we look at like fusing, you see the word fused superline on Fireline. You see it in the forward braid. We're taking a constructed product, and now we're adding a proprietary process to bring it all together. So it's ultimately taking a whole bunch of little fibers and bringing it into one, and that will make it tougher. So as you well know, Fireline is a very, very tough product, and taking all those fibers, bringing them into one makes it tough. And same with forward. Forward is a different construction. You have to keep it all together, so it is fused. As we say on pack, and that adds casting distance, so it's going to be very smooth. So it's going to cast very far. It's going to be very sensitive because of its construction, then because of the diameter. You know, when you fuse things, it's going to make it a little bit smaller. It's going to, if you just imagine a 4-carrier braid, you know, you can feel a 4-carrier braid. Well, that texture you feel, anglers love that texture because it's securing knots, but you get friction as you cast that. You will get friction on your rod guides, and so, you know, again, they like the knot, but they may not like the sound going through the guide. They may not like the castability of it, you know. And again, it's always that play between coating and whatnot. So. So braid is a big part of what we do here, both in spider wire and on the Berkley side, whether it's fused or whether it's not fused.
And I mean, like talking spider wire, I mean, you talk about historic moments. I mean, if you talk about the first braids out there in the industry, I mean, they did it best. You know what I mean? So like, we have history within the building of all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty crazy. But so as you go through the braided diffusion, the one thing I want to say, today, I'm running a lot of different lines in that category, but I would say I'm running an X9 on half of my rods, and I am running an original Fusion on half of my rods. And a lot of anglers will ask why this and that, and, you know, strength and what matters. But here's my big concept for me as an angler. Like, I run a lot of 15-pound Fireline Fusion, right? So it's a 6-pound diameter, and I do a lot of pike fishing with that, right? I throw a lot of jerk baits. We throw just a lot of various products with this. It is on that 15-pound. It can flatten itself out just a little bit, right? So it's not as truly round as some of the other braids out there. And I say that, and people are like, that's kind of weird. When I have a big pike, a 40-incher, and it hits the bait, and it goes down in the weeds and comes out of the weeds, that thinner line will cut right through the weeds, and I maintain pressure on my fish the entire time. I will land 90% more fish with that flat Fusion than I will a round braid that is so smooth it'll hold the weeds and I don't cut through them, and all of a sudden I have a big fish going here, I have a big clump of weeds on my line, and it doesn't work. So again, like the mono, I get enough complaints from people like, I don't know if I like the flat part. I'm like, man, you might not like it for this thing, but on some aspects it's even better. So there's a style or a technique or a spot for all of this stuff. You just as an angler have to know, like, hey, here's my application, here's what I need, and ask those questions or look for those key categories to know what you need in that fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm looking at my braid wall up there, and we've got a whole bunch of braids all the way from conventional to little processing in a Stealth Smooth 8, where it's not going to have a very thick coating on it. It's going to be less processed, so it's going to be limper for the angler that likes a limper braid. And then you're going to have something like a Stealth that may have a certain coating that's going to give it a little bit of body.
Yep.
And I like to call it, I like to call it, when I'm talking to sales, it's kind of like a built-in brake system. Like, the angler that may be fishing something limp and start having problems with it, we'll give them something with a little bit of brake in it, a little bit of coil to it. It's going to come out in the wash anyway when you break it in. And you just have to educate them on why that's there.
Yep.
But X5, X9, all of those, X5 and X9, as you know, have a core to them. So it's a 4-carrier braid and a core, which makes it 5, and an 8 plus 1
yep.
makes it 9. And the goal of that was to make it rounder. Yep. Braids have a tendency to be a little bit amorphous. They have a tendency to smush and to crush. And to flatten out. We've got 12 and 16 carrier braids, hollow core braids, yep. that we use for saltwater that are truly flat, right? And they're like a Chinese finger trap, because that's how it is. With
best way to describe that. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So like when you're talking about the round feature and the concepts of that, one thing I will highlight that, like I run a lot of X9 right now, and I'm doing a lot of forward facing, right? So I have mm-hmm. that option of line with the X9. I don't think I've ever had a line that is more accurate. With the round feature of that line, my bait placement upon a cast is so flawless. I swear it just comes off rod reel so delicately. I put less energy into a cast. My accuracy is there. So when I find that walleye in forward facing, or that bass, or whatever it is, and I make that cast, I can literally land a bait right where it wants to be. And again, that's a characteristic of that line that is just so flawless with that development of making it perfectly round. It's easy to deal with in a lot of situations. It lays nice. Everything about it is a nice line.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's going to be an 8-carrier on the outside.
Yep.
So it's going to be, it's not going to be your toughest line just because it's 8-carrier over 4. Typically, 4-carrier braids typically are just the toughest because there's more material on the outside. That's just the nature of any type of construction. But it's certainly going to be X9 or any of the 8-carriers. It's not going to be tough enough. They do really well there. But they're also very smooth, and a lot of anglers appreciate that. I've got topwater guys that they like a 4-carrier product because it's tough and they're fishing in the lily pads. And then I've got other guys that like an 8-carrier because they believe that, especially in shallow water, they believe that if that line is touching any of the lily pads or emergent vegetation, it's making sound. So they'd rather have it more silent. So again, it goes back to angler preference. What does the angler want? And then give the angler what he wants.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. So again, and there's a lot of options here. And this is one of those things that you literally have to ask yourself, hey, where am I fishing? What's my characteristic? What's my strength that I need? Because in the category of the braid fusion, whole lineup, there is a lot to it. You throw in the jerk bait. Is it for jigging? And then, like, you look at it, right? My walleye rods are rigged up with a very high viz, and I mean, anglers get thrown off. They're like, dude, are you really going to throw this bright green or flame line? And I'm like, you'll see in a minute. Like, we're running the best rods in the world, and like anything you can do to still amplify your ability to see and detect a strike, it's important, So there's literally so much in that subcategory for that. But again, it just comes down to, like, angler preference. Look at your conditions, your style, your scenario, and make sure you get the right line for that.
And we're not getting any younger. So
exactly.
I'm with you on the high vis line. It's like, well, I'm putting a leader on anyway, so why not make the line?
I mean, I pick up a rod like on some of my younger guides that work for me. I pick up their boat and I'm like, I cannot see this. And they're like, why do you need to see it? I'm like, man, I'm getting older. Exactly that. I'm like, I need everything. I can't even tell where I'm at, So, no, there's a big thing to it. Now, before we move on and talk fluorocarbon, I want to talk about some extreme strength. You mentioned the holocore, right? So last year, you sent me some big spools of my 200-pound holocore. This is what I'm running on my shark rods. Everybody sees it on my Facebook page, right? We're catching giant sharks from the beach. You can't describe the strength of a 200-pound holocore. So get this. I got hung up last week down in Florida, fishing on the beach, I got snagged for the first time. I've never been snagged before. I had a shark, actually, a smaller shark, pick up my bait, took it about 100 yards, dropped the bait. And after this shark dropped the bait, I got hung up on a reef, and I had to break it off. And I was pulling, couldn't break it. I had 3 other men on the beach, so 4 people total pulling on it, and I finally got the knot to go. But like, you could pull out a small vehicle with 200-pound hollow core. Like, it is insane how good of a job you've done building some of the line construction that you have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, PE is strong, and it just depends on what the application is. Obviously, when you get into hollow braid, you're talking saltwater, and so it better be strong, because the last thing people want to do is lose a fish because of your line. I always like to blame everything else. So it must have been the rod. It must have been hey, but you know what? It is what it is. Yeah. So no, appreciate that. And again, we try to use very tough fibers, very tough constructions, and that's the goal, is so that you catch fish.
Yep. I mean, that tell you what, the hollow core, I do a lot of sturgeon fishing. I do a lot of shark fishing, a lot of tarpon, just all the saltwater specs. I tell you what, the hollow core, the more I use it, the more I am just so blown away at the capabilities of it. So I love it. Absolutely. That's awesome there. Okay. As we move on to fluorocarbon, this is, again, the talk of the town, right? You just read the average thing. Everybody wants fluorocarbon. It's funny because in the category, this is my least used, right? I use 3 foot at a time. It's a leader material, and it's one of those things that it is not my priority. I mean, if I had to take one out of my life forever, it would be the fluorocarbon. But yet, when you talk to anglers, you walk a retail floor, it appears to be the hierarchy of all the lines. So walk us through fluorocarbon, what it is. And again, before you even start there, it's funny because every angler you talk fluorocarbon to, they want to talk about the clarity. It's invisible in the water. It's so great. And to me, that's the last thing I use it for. I would use it for the stiff quality as leader material to keep my baits from fouling. So I would take the stiff factor over the clear factor, but yet, I mean, everybody's done such a good job of marketing. It's the line to have, but yet, walk us through what you got and what it is.
Yeah, that's funny how you say that. I think that was one of the buzzwords back in the early 2000s. You know, we came out with Vanish. Vanish fluorocarbon is 100% PVDF, 100% fluorocarbon. It was geared to be the first mainline fluorocarbon. So the goal was to make it manageable. Not all fluorocarbon started that way.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Fluorocarbon has a tendency to be harder. It has to be, obviously, it sinks, so it's got a different density than water. But it has a tendency to be very unmanageable, very stiff, very coily. And you know, that obviously is a big problem. But where anglers really appreciated it early on was in leader material in saltwater, because it was clear. And so there was that going on around. Now you have so many fluorocarbons out there, and you just have the North America market. You know, it's hard to differentiate between, well, this one's really clear and this one's kind of clear and this one's damn clear. You know, they're all pretty clear. Yeah. And they didn't have a problem with their monofilament. And monofilament may be a little bit cloudier than fluorocarbon, but not much. Yeah. I mean, so again, it's all in that subjective range that we look at things. Some anglers care, some anglers don't care. But fluorocarbon, I think the one important thing you see with anglers is they love the sensitivity of it. And they love the fact that it sinks. Yep. So when we came out with Trilene 100%, they wanted something that stacked on reels a little bit better. So it's a little bit bigger diameter. It's made specifically for the bass angler, specifically on a casting reel, and it stacks very well on a casting reel. But it sinks. They have a direct line with the fish. So when you take all the attributes of strength and toughness and sinking and clarity and stretch and blah, 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 where does that rate for you, right? Yep. Strength is going to be one. Abrasion resistance on fluorocarbon is very good. You know, you got to be careful when you tie knots and do all that with it, for sure. But they love the fact that it sinks. They love the fact that it's sensitive. They love the fact that it's tough. And those would probably be your top three with respect to fluorocarbon. Again, it is a different material. It doesn't take in water like mono. It can be very unmanageable. Our goal is to make a manageable fluorocarbon, make it easier for people to use. We just came out with a new product called Gin Clear. You probably heard of it. Yep. know of it. Berkley Gin Clear, fantastic fluorocarbon. It's meant for performance casting because it's more manageable than the competition. And so we just had one of our anglers, he wanted to move to fluorocarbon, wanted to try it. He goes, it's one of the best fluorocarbons you guys have come out with because it's more manageable. Okay. I mean, fluorocarbon can be a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
If you don't know how to, it's just a nightmare. So, so that's all we're trying to do. I mean, it's still going to be strong. It's still going to do all the other things fluorocarbon does, but how do we just make it for the average guy? And ultimately, the avid will hopefully pick it up for sure. But how do you get more users into fluorocarbon?
That's just it. So here's something for the average person to kind of consider as we have these conversations. So we do a lot of live bait rigging for walleye, right? So we'll have a weight of some kind, a pencil weight, bouncer, walking weight, doesn't matter. And then we run a 3, 4, 5 foot leader to a hook, right? Maybe it's a revolve hook, an octopus hook, whatever. I had anglers last year, guided them, went out, didn't get snagged, caught 100 walleye a trip, and amazing experience. Went home, told them everything we were running. Hey, we're running, this weight, this barrel swivel, running 8-pound XT mono. Here's the hook, do it. They came out the next day, snagged all day long, minimal takes, vegetation on their hooks, horrible experience. And they were like, we did everything you said. And I was like, man, I said, I caught another 100 today. It was on fire. And trying to brainstorm, like we were in the parking lot, and I'm trying to brainstorm what they did. So I went and grabbed their rig, and I look at the line, I unhook it, and I can tell it's fluoro. And I'm like, man, you use fluoro. He goes, fluoro's better. That should help us. I'm like, no. I'm like, in this case, it's not better. And he's like, it's better in all ways. And I'm like, here's the deal. You're sinking. We're pulling these live bait rigs so slow, it was pulling their weights down or pulling their hook down with the leech. They were getting snagged. They weren't getting any lift. It wasn't in the fish's face. It was constantly dirty. So by their eyes, they thought I was just being like cheap by running mono. So they were like, we're going to step him up a game. We're going to really catch him. If he caught 100, we're going to catch 200 by using fluoro. And it was literally a lost cause because they didn't understand the application. Same thing. The amount of anglers that I see that throw topwater with fluoro, new on, right? They're just starting to fish. They have a rod that they put fluoro on. They have one rod for all their techniques, and they can't get a topwater bait to run right. And they'll get so frustrated they don't understand. Every line has a very particular purpose once you get into it. So it's all about learning your concept of, hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the line for me. Here's how I need to do it. And more importantly, if you are that angler that says, hey, I don't have multiple rods, you're the mono guy, right? If you are the, I need a rod for everything, we know where to send you, right? Hey, there's monos that do a decent job at everything. So there's definitely something for everyone there. But it's just crazy that almost this entire conversation goes overlooked in a lot of conversations with anglers.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up, there's we always go up, got a church group going up to Lake Cabotogum up in northern Minnesota. And guys asking, the first time I went up there, I brought 18 rods because, again, I'm there to fish. I'm on vacation. Daddy's on vacation. All I want to do is cast and retrieve and go fish. So I know how to catch a pike. I know how to catch a walleye. I know how to catch a smallmouth bass. But you got to have multiple techniques for each one. So now I got all these rods. They're like, why'd you bring all these rods? I said, that's not the point. The point is we don't want to retie. We want to go out and fish. So it was a blast. I think sometimes I get more out of helping someone else set up their rigs and, hey, here's what you're going to do. And if this is going on, do this. And if that's going on, do that. Then sometimes even going out and just fishing, because you want to see the excitement on their face. You want to see they have a good time, because ultimately it comes down to bringing new entrants, into fishing and help them think, or if they're already help them think through the thought process. Okay, I'm fishing topwater. There's emergent vegetation. Wouldn't mind throwing a frog. Okay, what is my rod and reel and line setup for that? And then let's see if I got it right.
That's it. And I think the other cool part is the average person is looking for a big change. The average angler that maybe isn't successful, they are looking for this massive light to turn on that changes their whole fishing success. And all of a sudden, like this, right? You're like, hey, we got to switch your line. They're like, don't worry about that. What are you actually doing? I'm like, no, switch your line. That's going to help us. And they do that, and like all of a sudden they see a drastic result, and they just miss the little things, because a lot of times, especially in the line category, the little things turn into the very, very big things. When you're able to do a technique or a cast or a situation and pull it off flawlessly, it makes a huge, huge difference at the end of the day.
Yep, huge difference. I always give the example of my neighbor. He still fishes mono a lot. And I work here at Pure Fishing, and I'm working in Berkley and Spider Wire and Stren. It's like, hey, we got this prototype. I want you to fish it. I got this prototype. And, he always still will gravitate back. His whole system, the way he fishes, it's built around monofilament. That's what he grew up with. And that's what fits within his system. And not all anglers are like that. I would hate to be a fish under his boat, because he catches them and it's flour and devour, baby. But all anglers are different, and that's why we have all the rods we have, and we have all the lines we have, and all, my good grief, all the baits we have. So.
Nope, that's it. All right, I have 2 questions left for you. One, I talked about this with Chris Seiler, a good friend of ours in the industry here. One of the biggest topics that we've been talking about lately, in the forward-facing sonar category, more than ever, we are able to find fish, cast specifically to fish, and catch that fish. It was started off with doing some podcasts with some walleye pros, and then one of the guides on my team, so he works for me, and he is like the forward-facing guy. It's just who he is, right? Like, I don't think he's made a cast this year blindly. Like, if there's not a fish on his graph, he doesn't cast. So... Either way, all of a sudden I looked at these like 5-6 individuals that are at the next level of everything, and they all have a rod or 2 rods rigged up on their boat with very heavy line, mostly a braid, but like 35 or 30 pound, 40 pound, 50 pound. And I'm like, what on earth are they doing? And they are looking for a diameter pull in the water column to create an arc. So as they see a fish in the water column, they cast a heavy bait, open spool it, let the bait get down to the level of the fish. But then as they add movement to the bait, there's so much of an arc in the water by that thicker diameter and the resistance, it causes the bait to hop upwards and present a vertical fashion even at a distance, instead of cutting through the water and pulling the bait forward. Are you seeing that trend as a line manager? Are a lot of anglers upping their diameter to create almost what you don't want, to create an arch to get a vertical presence? Is that something you've...
I guess where I see it is the finesse braid thing is really important when you're using forward-facing sonar. So they'll be using 8-pound, 10-pound braids, whether it's a conventional braid or a fused braid. So it can be forward, fire line, it can be X5, X9, doesn't matter. All of them work extremely well depending on what you're used to. So I think it's important to cut the water. Where I've noticed it is they're using a little bit bigger leader. A little bit bigger leader will create more drag, to your point. The one line will cut, the other line will slow, and then from there, it's how are you seeing your bait, which is really great for forward-facing sonar. We now can see what we're doing and see what is what action we can elicit into the bait, if I said that correctly, where the fish is now biting. So we never had that opportunity now, and that's what's really cool. You're seeing the effect on the end result. If I'm just normally casting and retrieving, I'm never catching that fish, right? Back in the day, if I'm fishing the bottom, well, those fish aren't on the bottom. Now I'm seeing it, I'm watching their reaction to it, and that's what's key. But the way I look at it is, you got to be able to cut the water, and we have lines to do that. Forward is a great line. It's thermally fused, it's thin, it's made for this type of application, and it cuts the water. And so that's your first step. Then from there, you can play around with leader and lower weights and all that to get what you need to catch more fish.
I like it. Okay. All right. Mono, superline, braid, and fluorocarbon. What knot are you tying with each?
What knot am I tying with each?
So let's just say you're not tying a technique specific. So it's not a loop knot version. Let's just pretend you're tying a snap-on. What is your knot per line category?
Okay, so what am I not tying on? Okay, so like fluorocarbon, I'm not using fluorocarbon with a topwater bait.
No. I'm saying like what kind of knot, actual physical knot are you?
Oh, not.
What kind of knot are you tying? We get so many questions on knots, and I'm like, I hate to say it, I'm not a knot guy. You know how it is. Same thing. I have guides on my team that like I'm watching them rig baits. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, it's a something, and I'm like, man, I'm old school on the knots, but obviously you're the line professional. Line per attachment point. What knot are you tying?
For a leader knot, I'm usually doing a Alberta.
Okay.
Or even a uni to uni. I know a lot of the guys like FG, and we make sure our lines work with FG.
Okay.
But for me, with an FG, with needing probably glasses to see it and everything, I don't tie an FG as well.
I don't tie an FG at all. It's too slow for me.
So I'm an Alberto or a uni guy. Okay. If I'm tying mainline to braid, it's going to be a Palomar.
Okay.
If I'm tying fluorocarbon to a mainline, fluorocarbon to the bait, I'm using Palomar on some lines, some pound tests, and trilene on others.
Okay.
Use trilene knot. I do the same on mono. I do a lot of trilene knot stuff.
Perfect. Okay.
So,
I'm pretty with you on that.
Leader is super important.
Yep.
I know the guys up here love to use braid with a fluoro leader, and they'll put on a longer fluoro leader, but use an FG knot so that they don't have to keep retying the FG because it's a little harder to tie.
That's it. It's just too slow for me. Sure. But I agree. It goes through my guides a lot better. It's just one of those give and take.
And an FG is a strong knot. It's also the hardest knot to tie. It's also the lowest exposure, seamless, right? It's going to have less issue going through your guides. Alberto's kind of in the middle again. Back to the middle child and the middle bear. I'll take the middle. Nothing wrong with the middle.
Nope, I like it.
And then a uni to uni is probably your simplest knot to tie, biggest exposure, and probably not your strongest. I'm pretty sure we've done the research on this one. I think an FG is the strongest. Alberto's pretty darn strong as well. So.
Nope, I love it. All right, final question of the podcast. What are you excited about within your category, fishing, line? What's got you excited for the future?
That's a really good question. We're always working on new braids. We're always working on new fluorocarbons. We're actually working on some new monos as well.
Ooh,
I love new product development. Okay. I love the journey of it all. It's always great. At the end of the journey, you've got the new product. It's like, great. We've hit on all of these. We're launching. Okay, what's next? So I really appreciate the hunt. I appreciate working with our key opinion leaders, understanding what do they mean when they say something is fragile or something is this. It may not be the right terminology, but ultimately what we do with those guys is we'll set the benchmark. Hey, here's what we want to do. These are the techniques we want to do it in. But we have to remember that people are tying leaders, whether it's a finesse leader, heavy leader, mainline. We have to understand that, and taking it to a broader group to ultimately help people catch more fish is kind of where I really enjoy that. I've had that on the bait side, and I've had that on the line side. There's nothing better than having a pro like Gary Parsons call you and say, wow, this flicker shad catches way more fish than or, hey, this line is way more manageable, and it's exactly what you said it was going to be. We do sell trust. I've got it written up here on my board. Selling trust with line, we sell trust. We want to make sure the anglers trust it because we've done the work behind the scenes to ensure that they have a good experience on the water.
Yep, I love it. That's a great way to wrap it up because it's very much the truth, and that's the focus point of all of it. And I tell you what, just even talking about this, kind of my excitement as we wrap it up is just where it's come. Like things are so good. It's almost scary, but it really is. I mean, like you talk about this, right? How many fish back in the day did you ever lose because of a line failure? It happened. It wasn't often, but looking back, we had failures and we lost fish. Like if somebody calls me now and they're like, "Oh, my line broke," I'm like, "What?" Like I can't tell you the last time I broke off. It's just our line is so sophisticated and so good now. It takes effort. Like I was joking with that holoco for shark. It took 4 200-pound plus men to get the knot to fail. to get it unhung. Like, it is just crazy how good it has become. And I don't know, it probably makes us worse anglers, right? Because like, it almost makes you lazy. Things are so good, but it's just crazy. So I love where it's coming. Honestly, this category is one that is such an important topic because, again, everybody wants the big picture. They want to have the certain bait or the certain thing. And I mean, I actually had, not that I wanted to, talk about this topic, but rods, right? I talked to a young angler at a retailer. I was doing an event at Bass Pro, and this young angler, which I could tell could not afford the nicest rod, right? So he's looking at some rods in that $400 or $500 range, right? He's looking at these Abus, and I'm like, hey man, and I can tell it's going to crush him. And I'm looking at what he's got, and he's running, a way over diameter mono, and he's trying to finesse fish. And I was like, hey, why don't we just get you some braid for $20? I'm like, I think it's going to change the world. And he was like, no. I promise you, you don't need a new rod. Like, maybe at some point, once you get to that level, maybe. But right now, you don't. And, I mean, you watch this person that literally changed their entire, fishing life by minor changes. Line is such a big deal. It's the future. It's where it's at. It's such a big category. So I cannot thank you enough for coming on and just walking people through what's out there and the general concepts behind it, because I think that's such a big deal within the category.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, guys. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Chris. Again, like I said, the man, the myth, legend. You heard it here. You know so much about line. You know the concepts behind the technology, and that's probably the biggest thing. You are start to finish the ultimate resource in line. You guys heard it here first of everything you need. Make those good decisions. Ask questions. Develop the right line for your use, and I promise you, it's going to lead to more fish on all those outings next time you get out there. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I appreciate you. All right, guys. My name is Nate Zielinski. We got Chris behind the studios. We got our guest, Chris, with Berkley, again, part of the Pure Fishing brand lineup. I'm Nate Zielinski, guys. You are listening to The Source Podcast, officially brought to you by Jiffy Ice Fishing. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next time.